Thank grace of heaven, the virtues of masters, compassion of the grand predecessor and predecessor, all transmitters, lectures, temple hosts, and all of you for giving me this opportunity to be here to learn to speak the Four Noble Truths. The historical Buddha, also called Gautama Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha, was believed to have about 29 years old when he began his quest for enlightenment. His quest was accomplished about 6 years later when he was in his mid-30s under the Bodhi tree, located at Bodh Gaya, Bihar, India. That's about where that location is currently. That's a current map. Okay. The story of the Buddha's enlightenment is not told exactly the same way in all schools of Buddhism, although Siddhartha Gautama, a acclaimed prince living roughly between the years of 563 BCE to 483 BCE, are not precisely known. It is certain, however, that this young prince was an actual historical figure, and that the transformation he underwent set in place a spiritual revolution that continues to this day. We will be looking at the four sides, of course. The first, the second, third, and the fourth noble truth, and its subcategories. Buddha Shakyamuni, Siddhartha Gautama, had been confined to his palace in present Nepal by his father, who feared that he would become an ascetic if he came into contact with sufferings of life, according to a prediction. After leading a sheltered existence surrounded by luxury and pleasure in his younger years, Prince Siddhartha ventured out of his palace for the first time at the age of 29. He set off from the palace to the city in chariot, I think that's how you pronounce it, is a two-wheeled horse-drawn vehicle used in ancient warfare and racing, accompanied by his charioteer, a chariot driver. Is also called Channa. On this journey, he first saw an old man, revealing to Siddhartha the consequences of aging. When the prince asked about this person, Channa replied that aging was something that happened to all beings. The second side was a sick person suffering from a disease. Once again, the prince was surprised at the sight, and Channa explained that all beings are subject to disease and pain. This further troubled the mind of the prince that none can stay healthy and live a pain-free life. The third side was of a dead body. As before, Channa explained to the prince that death is an inevitable fate that befalls everyone. After seeing these three sides, Siddhartha was troubled in his mind and sorrowful about the sufferings that have to be endured in life. Siddhartha came upon the fourth side, an ascetic who had devoted himself to finding the cause of human suffering. The sight gave him hope, and he too might be released from the sufferings arise from being repeatedly reborn, and he resolved it to follow the ascetic's example. However, He knew that the meditation and starvation were not the factors on his path to enlightenment. He realized then that this experience showed him the way to realization. Instead of punishing his body to find release from the confines of the self, he will work with his own nature and practice purity of mental defilements to realize enlightenment. When his mind was purified by concentration, it is said he acquired the 3 knowledges. The first knowledge was that of his past lives and his past lives of all beings. The second knowledge was the laws of karma. The third knowledge was that he was free of all obstacles and released from attachments. The core concepts of the Buddha's teaching is the 4 Noble Truths. Namely, suffering is the noble truth. There is a cause of suffering is the noble truth. There is an end or cessation to the suffering is the noble truth. There is a path to reach self-liberation is the noble truth. The 4 noble truths are the truths of Buddha's enlightenment and verifiable truths that everyone can attest to. It's the awareness that the Buddha wants us to be awakened by observing or pay attention to all phenomena and really seek the source of all suffering. Once we realize the source of suffering, we focus on cultivation, which is the 8th Noble Path, or the Noble Eightfold Path, to transcend samsara. Once we are self-liberated or emancipated, we can then help others to cultivate and to self-liberate. The 4 noble truths in Chinese are 苦圣地, 集圣地, 灭圣地, 道圣地. The word D, right? The D, the character D here, at the end of each means the unchanged principle or the unchanged truth. Why is it a truth? For example, in the old day, we get, you're all young people, but in the old day, okay, we read about this too. From sleeping on the hard surface bed, right, right? Now we have layers of cushions on our mattress, right, to sleep on. Do we get aches still? Yes. What do you guys think? The answer is yes, but why? Well, we can't be sleeping too long in the bed, correct? And that is the truth. Nothing is permanent and lasts forever. Okay. We are very fortunate and grateful to have Buddha's teaching. The first noble truth is called dukkha. That's is it Pali or Sanskrit?
I think Sanskrit, huh? I think it was Pali.
It's either way, but we hear that a lot. Okay. And it's often translated as life is suffering. This is not as terrible as it sounds, right? It's actually quite the opposite, which is why it can be confusing. Much confusion is due to the English translation of the Pali/Sanskrit word dukkha, suffering. According to a monk and a scholar, the word actually means incapable of satisfying or not able to bear or withstand anything. Dukkha also refers to anything that is temporary, conditional, or compounded of other things. Even something precious and enjoyable is dukkha because it will end. Further, the Buddha was not saying that everything about life is relentlessly awful. In other sermons, he spoke of many types of happiness, such as the happiness of family life. But as we looked more closely at dukkha, we see that it touches everything in our lives, including good fortune and happy times. Among other things, the Buddha taught that the 5 skandhas are dukkha. The skandhas or aggregates, these are probably a new vocabulary for a lot of new people here. But basically, they're components of a living sentient beings. It's the first one is the forms, okay, the forms, and the other one is the second one is feelings or sensations. The third one is the perceptions, conceptions, ideas, mental formation or imprints, impulses, intention, volition. Okay, so the last one is the consciousness, or awareness of the mind. In other words, the animated body you identify as yourself is dukkha, because it is impermanent and it will eventually perish. Okay, so you see it includes the pain, getting old, disease, and ultimate death, right? We also endure physical suffering like loneliness, frustration, boredom, fear, embarrassment, disappointment, and anger. There are 8 sufferings: birth, old age, sickness, death, being apart from the loved ones, being together with the despised ones, not getting what we want, flourishing of the 5 skandhas. The second noble truth, samadaya, perhaps. That's how maybe it's pronounced, right? Okay. All right, so the second noble truth is saying there's a cause for suffering. It teaches that the cause of suffering is greed or desire. The actual word from the early scripture is tanha. Oh, maybe I need to do the... Okay, here. This is more accurately translated as thirst, craving, desire, longing, greed, either physical or mental. We continually search for something outside ourselves to make us happy. But no matter how successful we are, we never remain satisfied. The second truth is not telling us that we must give up everything we love to find happiness. No. The real issue here is more subtle. It's the attachment to what we desire that gets us into trouble. Really, we all have to think about this. The Buddha taught that this thirst grows from ignorance of the self. We go through life grabbing one thing after another to get a sense of security about ourselves. We attach not only to the physical thing, but also the idea and opinions about ourselves and the world around us. Then we grow frustrated when the world doesn't behave the way we think it should, and our lives don't conform to our expectations. Buddhist practice brings about a radical change in perspectives. Our tendency to divide the universe into me and everything else, fades away. In time, the practitioner is better able to enjoy life's experience without judgment, bias, manipulation, or any of the other mental barriers we erect between ourselves and what's real. The Buddha's teaching on karma and rebirth are closely related to the second noble truth. Okay, so I wanted to go in a little deeper where that this is something that we don't normally think about, and it's good to have a knowledge of it, so you can kind of really look what's around you and look inwards about yourself. Okay, this is an insight into the chain of existence. Existence means everything that we can see, we can touch in this world. Yes, it's called the 12 links of dependent of origination. Nidana, it's again, it's a Pali or the Sanskrit word. In Chinese, it's called 因缘, 十因缘. Okay.
The second O is there's no.
What?
It's called 12 links of dependent origination.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must be. It's called. Okay, so the 12 links can also be understood in terms of our past life, present life, and future life. It is because of the mystery of birth, old age, and death that the Buddha arises in the world. There is no realm of existence in which these realities do not exist, and it is the sole purpose of the Buddha's enlightenment to penetrate into their root causes. Perhaps the most profound part of the Buddha's teaching is the description of how this wheel of life, death, and rebirth continue rolling on. The insight into all these links of the chain of existence is expressed in what is called the law of dependent origination. There are 12 links in the law of dependent origination. The first two have to do with the cause in the last life which conditioned birth in this one. The first of these links is ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing the truth, not understanding the Dharma, ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Oh, this is the Chinese part, if you read Chinese. Okay, but let's go back here. Volitional activity is conditioned by ignorance because we don't understand the truth. We are involved in all kinds of actions. And the karma force of these actions conditions the third link in the chain. Because we do not perceive things clearly, because we do not perceive the fact of suffering and its cause and the way out. That force of ignorance conditions the next link in the chain. Volitional action of body, speech, mind, motivation by wholesome or unwholesome mental factors. I think I wanted to, because I think I have a lot, I wanted to go through the easier part instead of, okay, here, let's do like questions, okay? A question format's easier. Okay, so why is there an old age? Right? Why isn't it old age, disease, and death? Remember Buddha, venture out and he saw these four sides, right? So, here, let's go to the screen probably. Okay. So on the left-hand side, it's called the chain of existence of dependently arising transmigration. And the other side, okay, it's called the cessation of dependently arising transformation. Basically, this is why we're here. And this part is a way, it's telling us how do you go back the way that we were before. Okay, so the first question, why is there old age, disease, and death, right? Because the birth. it's right here. All right. So because of birth, right? Okay. So if you look at the English part, we start with the death. The question, why do we die, basically? Well, the answer is because birth. All right. Why is there birth? So why is there birth? Because of all the actions of becoming, right? Yes, that's karma. All the volitional activity motivated by greed, hatred, and delusion. So the next question we ask, why are we involved in these kind of activities? Because of grasping. Because of grasping, we want it, right? Why is there grasping? Okay, yeah, the answer is up there. Because of desire in mind. Why is there desires? Desire, because of feeling, right? Because the quality of pleasantness, of unpleasantness arises. Why is there why is there feelings? Because of contact. Contact meaning, from seeing things, touching things, feeling things. You like to feel things, like to eat things, right? Okay, so why is there contact? Because our sixth sense, right? Our hands, our eyes, or sixth root, we call it. Okay, and the whole-minded body phenomena. Because there's nothing we can do now about being mind-body process. There is a condition by past ignorance and having taken birth. So there is no way to avoid contact. Now this part is talking about, this chart. Okay, this part is talking about here, all right? Since we now that we know we went through these, like from ignorance to death or disease, why we die or death. Now let's see how we can. It's part of cultivation, basically. So here says there's no possible way of closing off all the sense organs, even if they were desirable. Right? Can we do that? Still, it's hard, right? If there is a contact, there's no way of preventing feeling from arising. Because a contact, feeling will be there. It's a common factor of mind. But it is right at this point that the chain can be broken. So it's very important that we know, we're here already, and the only way to stop the cycle, basically we need to know we should not have any, it's called no contact. So this character is called contact, right? Because once we're in contact, we start to have feelings, right? We have feelings and we start wanting things or don't want things, and when we start to pick and choose, right? Once we pick and choose, that's part of creating this whole karmic things. And because of karma, we're reborn again. So here, the Buddha is telling us, if we can stop right here, no contact, there will be no birth, and we're returned to the way we were before, which is, I guess in this case, is nirvana, or reach that enlightenment. Understand the law of dependent origination. How, because of one thing, something else arises, we can begin to break the chain of conditioning. When pleasant things arise, we don't cling. When unpleasant things arise, we don't condemn. And when neutral things arise, we're not forgetful. The Buddha said that the way of forgetfulness is the way of death. And that is the way of wisdom and awareness in the path, is the path to the deathless. We are free to break this chain, to free ourselves from conditioned reactions. It takes a powerful mindfulness in every moment not to allow feelings to generate desires. Here, I believe it talks a lot about the emotions. Okay, do not act upon your emotions because emotion can lie to you, and most times they do lie to you. So first you need to calm down, right? Just think about this, all right, on your own. Okay, so when there is ignorance in the mind, feeling, condition, desire, if there's something pleasant, didn't I just said this? Okay. Anyway, all right, let's move on. There's another subcategory. Four Noble Truths, also called the 三转十二行法人. I don't know this is the proper translation on the 12 volitions, but basically, learning the noble truth is going through the process of healing for the sick people. All right, we're kind of sick people here, in many different ways. All right, so here, there's a phrase. In Chinese, it's called. It's said like this: 月可令热，日可令冷。佛说是地不可令易. Right? It's interesting. The translation is like this: the moon can become hot. Right? The sun can become cold. Buddha's Four Noble Truths are the truths, so they don't change. The first two lines describe the moon, right? The moon one day can be hot, and the sun, one day can be cold. Their conditions are subject to change. But the Four Noble Truths are true facts. They are the truths proclaimed when the Buddha first became enlightened. In order to let the public really understand, there were 3 sermons given to the time calling the 3 turning of the Dharma wheel and 12 volitions or conducts. The first turning of the wheel, here. Okay, so this is I simplified it this way. Okay, so the first turning of the wheel is called 事项转. Okay, and I try to translate. I think it means, I want to think it means introduce the existence, right? Which explains the first noble truth, 只是苦逼迫性, right? So suffering, we're forced to accept. 只是急躁感性, this is collected, we incur the karma. 只是灭可证性, this is an extension. They can be attested and returned to our true nature. 此是道可修行, this is Tao we can cultivate. And the second turning of the wheel is called 劝修转, it's persuade to cultivate. 此是苦鲁应知, this is suffering we should understand. Oh, actually here is not we, it uses I should understand. Okay. 此是即如应断. This is collected. I should break off. 此是灭如应正. This is an extinction. That means the end, okay? It can be diminished. I should attest. 此是道如应修. This is Tao. I should cultivate. And the third turning is called 坐正转. It's self-verified or verification. It encourages the disciples to bravely improve. We can all become enlightened by the Four Noble Truths. So here is after we know the first and the second truth, we realize the truths. 此是苦我己知, Suffering I understood. 只是我几段 these are collected karma I discontinued. 只是灭我几正 extinction I attested. 只是道的道我几修 I cultivated. Okay, so this is the third noble truth. The Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths are sometimes compared to the physician diagnosing an illness and prescribing a treatment. The first truth tell. What happened to my screen?
It's number 3.
Yeah, but you know the.
It's too big.
Oh,
Oh,
delete one space.
it's supposed to be over there. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Probably reformatted somehow. Okay. The first truth tell us what the illness is, and the second truth tell us what causes the illness. The third noble truth holds out hope for a cure. All right. The solution to dukkha is to stop clinging and attaching. But how do we do that? The fact is that it cannot be accomplished by an act of will. It's impossible to just vow to yourself, from now on, I won't crave anything. That doesn't work because the conditions that give rise to craving will still be present. The second noble truth tells us that we cling to things we believe will make us happy or keep us safe, grasping for one ephemeral thing after another never satisfy us for long because it's all impermanent. It is only when we see this for ourselves that we can stop grasping. When we do see it and letting go it easily, the craving was seen to disappear of its own accord. This is a lifelong practice, so it's very important. The Buddha taught that through diligent practice, we can put an end to craving, ending the hamster wheel chase, right? After satisfaction is enlightenment, or it's called Buddhi, or it's called awaken. The enlightened being exists in the state called nirvana. The fourth noble truth is called Mika. The Buddha spent at least 45 or so long of his life, 45 or 49, sometimes people say 49, but since he reached his enlightenment was about mid-30s, so that's 35, and then he died at 80, so 45, about 45. But Liu Zhangzi said 49, but close. Okay. Or so, okay, so the Buddha spent at least 45 or so years of his life giving sermons on aspects of Four Noble Truths. The majority of these were about the fourth truth, the path, Mecca. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha has, as a physician, prescribed the treatment for our illness. The Eightfold Path, unlike in many other religions, it has no particular benefit to merely believing in the doctrine. Instead, the emphasis on living the doctrine and walking the path. The path is a broad area of practice that touches every part of our lives. It ranges from study to ethical conduct to what you do for a living to moment. Mindfulness. Every action of body, speech, and mind are addressed by the path. It is the path of exploration and discipline to be walked for the rest of one's life. Without the path, the first three truths wouldn't just be a theory. The practice of Eightfold Path brings the Dharma into one's life and makes it bloom. So the Noble Eightfold Path is just a quick view. I'm not gonna get into it because this is a subject on its own. So the right understanding, here. Okay, this may be easier to see. Okay, so in Chinese it's called Ba Zhen Dao, right? The right view, understanding, the right thought, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right effort, the right mindfulness, the right concentration. It's breaking down into 3 qualities. So the wisdom part consists of the first 2, the right view and the right thought. And the morality considers the speech, action, livelihood, the right effort. And the deep meditative state of mind is the mindfulness and the right concentration. The Buddha explained that existence has 3 characteristics. The Buddhists call them the 3 marks of existence, or it's also called universal truth. The first one is anicca or anicca. Aniya. In Chinese, it's called wuchang, right? It means impermanence. The world around us changes. Sometimes those changes are quick and easy to see, like the burning of the match. Sometimes like the movement of the continental plates and the wearing away of the mountains. The changes are very slow. However, slow the changes are and difficult they are to observe, everything changes. The Buddha said that existence is like the flowing water in the river or the flame of a candle. It is never the same for 2 moments. Do we agree? Right? Okay, so the second mark of existence is called dukkha, as we learned the first noble truth already. It means suffering. All existence are suffering. The third, it's called anathema, or it's called anatta. It means no self, non-self, or non-ego. The Buddha said that there is no such thing as self. Many people find this hard to understand. He said that there is no one unchanging thing that is a person. Everything you changes. As you grow and get older, your body changes. And your mind changes. You are never the same. He said that when we say I, we're talking about something that does not really exist. I is just a name for a collection of things that keep on changing. I like this one. I really like this sentence. Okay. So I, again, just a name for a collection of things that keep on changing. The Buddha said that what goes into your next life is not you or your soul, but your karma. The Buddha taught that the 3 marks of existence, or the 3 Dharma seals, are linked to each other, and that once we really understand them, we can begin to conquer suffering. He said that when we realize that there is no such thing as I, we will become less self-centered. We will be less afraid of changing and less afraid of dying. Being less centered, we will make us better, able to get on with other people and behave well towards them. He said that a person who understands about anatta will be much more able to lead a good life and to avoid suffering. The Buddha taught us followers that when a person fully understood about the 3 Dharma seals and the person who become enlightened, we told them that an enlightened person would no longer have to suffer samsara and would reach the condition called nirvana. Okay. So the Buddha taught us, there's a belief in reincarnation. They believe that everyone lived many lives. Buddhists believe that when a person dies, he or she will be born again as a new person, and it's called the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, or it's also called samsara. The quality of your next life depends on your karma. Karma is the combined effect of our good and bad deeds in our past lives. So here, which will be your primary focus? There's a saying here: the kind of seed sown will produce that kind of fruit. Those who do good will reap good results. Those who do evil will reap evil results. If you carefully plant a good seed, you will joyfully gather good fruit. Okay. So, to conclude this, I like to play maybe 5 minutes, I forgot. But it's a short video just to review all the Four Noble Truths. Okay?
The first noble truth of Buddhism is that suffering is an inescapable part of life. The legends say that when Gautama, who later became the Buddha, left his palace, he saw an old man, a diseased man, and a decaying corpse. He realized that our lives include struggle, anguish, and pain. The second noble truth is that this suffering stems from the greed, ignorance, and hatred that arises in our minds, our craving to avoid the difficulties life throws up. The third noble truth is that we can end all this if we can stop craving and respond differently. Doing so brings nirvana, or awakening, a state of complete wisdom and compassion for all beings. The fourth noble truth is the Buddha's recipe for achieving happiness, virtue, and eventually nirvana. It is the eightfold path of developing understanding, positive intentions, skillful speech, action and livelihood, making the right kind of effort, cultivating mindfulness, and mastering meditation. The Buddha compared his teachings to a raft that a man uses to cross a raging river. Once you've crossed the river using the raft, once you've understood the truth of life for yourself, there's no point in remaining attached to it.
Okay.
Simplified version.
Yes, it is. It's less than 2 minutes, huh? So that concludes my presentation. If I have said anything wrong, I ask the Buddha and transmitters and everybody else to please correct me. And thank you for everyone.